Hey, how's it going, everybody? This is Leverbolt76. I'm Chad, and today we're going to talk about the Savage Access chambered in 25-06. All right, let's get after it. The 25-06 began life in 1912, and it was developed by Charles Newton, who I'm sure you've heard of. He took the 30-06 and necked it down to 25 caliber, made it for a rifle with a 1 in 14 twist and a 117 grain bullet. And he called it the 25 Newton. And like much of Newton's work, it didn't really take off. It wasn't terribly successful until Savage Arms heard of it. And they had their short action Model 99 lever action rifle. Well, they talked to Mr. Newton and got him to shorten that 25 Newton so it would fit into their short action rifle. And guess what was born? The 250-3000, which was the first U.S. cartridge to break the 3,000 feet per second barrier. And I've done another video on that one, so if you want to check that out, go ahead and look at that. At any rate, the 25 Newton pretty much went by the wayside. And then, in 1920, another gunsmith and wildcatter named A.O. Needner did the same thing. He just took a 30-06, necked it down to 25 caliber. I think he left the shoulder at 17 degrees. And really, the only difference is he put it in a rifle with a 1 in 12 twist, which was able to stabilize from an 85 grain bullet to about a 120 grain bullet. And Needner was able to get 3,000 feet per second out of a 100 grain bullet, which at that time the 250-3000 was just under that with the 100 grain bullet. They had to use an 87 grain bullet to reach that 3,000 feet per second mark. At any rate, Needner named his new cartridge the 25 High Power Special. And it actually kind of took up some steam. He developed it as a varmint cartridge, and there was a lot of gunsmiths and wildcatters chambering rifles for this cartridge. And it was fairly successful as a varmint cartridge until big game hunters began to get familiar with it. And they started using it to shoot deer, even elk, and black bear with this. So this cartridge languished on in the wildcat world for quite a few years until a new powder became available, H4831. And this really helped the cartridge to take off. And previous to that, it was barely outdoing the 250-3000, so people didn't really see much of a point in chambering a rifle and hand loading and all that when they could just go out and buy a rifle and cartridges for the 250-3000. But once this cartridge was loaded with the H4831 powder, it was now gaining 300 feet per second on the 250-3000. Remington then picked up this cartridge, as they did so many successful Wildcat cartridges. They called it the 25-06 Remington, and they introduced it in their Model 700 rifle and the 40X rifle. This cartridge at that time was pushing a 120 grain bullet with a 1 in 12 twist barrel at 3,120 feet per second, which was pretty respectable. Okay, let's talk about the rifle. This is the Savage Access XP. XP just means it comes with a scope. They also make the Savage Access 2, which has the Savage AccuTrigger on it. This one does not. And these rifles are pretty well known for their out-of-the-box accuracy for a entry-level budget rifle. I've never actually had one. I've never shot it. This one I've had probably 2 years. And I got it at a Bass Pro sales event. You had to order online. I think you got a $100 off coupon. I picked up this rifle for $250, $300 when everything was said and done. So I'm pretty excited to get out there and shoot it and see if they're as accurate as they say they are. But you've got the Tang safety on it. Looks like a pretty good recoil pad. You've got this cheap Casper Weaver scope, which I'm a big fan of the old Weavers. I know that Weaver went downhill quite a bit in their later years once they went to Japan. But at any rate, we'll see how well this scope does. It's, of course, got the synthetic stock. The trigger guard, unlike the 110s, is molded in. It's all one piece. The action on this thing doesn't seem too bad. And just like all my videos, the rifle is not loaded until I get to the range. But this action works pretty well. I mean, it's fairly smooth. I really can't complain about anything. The stock seems pretty firm on it. There's a little bit of movement down at the fore end on this. I mean, it's got the full floated barrel. It's centered very well. I don't know if you guys can see that, but I mean, really, to me, seems like a pretty good rifle. Of course, it has the 22-inch threaded barrel, like most Savages do. All the 110s have that threaded barrel and all the axes. The rifle's weight without a scope is 6.3 pounds. With the scope, 7.3 pounds. So it's not a heavy rifle by any means. You have the Weaver scope mounts and rings, which I've always had good luck with, no problems at all. These, they just have the single bolt on top. They're not like the Grand Slam mounts with the double bolts up there. So they're probably not quite as good as the Grand Slam rings, but on this 25-06, it's a gentle enough rifle that I don't think you're going to have any problem with scope movement or anything like that, so it doesn't really kick too hard. This safety, I mean, it works really well. One finger, you can click it back and forth. Of course, you've got your mounts to put a sling swivel on there if you'd like. The one thing that I'm a little apprehensive about is this detachable magazine. So the top of it, the upper assembly is metal, so which I like. The spring feels pretty good. Inside the follower is plastic, and as well as the bottom is plastic, and the clip is plastic. So have a little bit of trouble getting that in there, and it's a bit difficult to get out compared to the 110s, which the magazine on the 110s are great. I mean, they pop in and out. I've never had any issues with those. But it's a sharp looking rifle. Seems decent enough to me. Like I say, there's seems to be some quality in here. So okay, well, I think we'll take this out to the range and put it through its paces. What I would like to do is, since these are supposed to be bore sighted right out of the box, we'll go ahead and walk everybody through that, get it sighted in at 50 yards, and then take it out to 100, see how well it does there, and then go to 200, 300, and 400 yards possibly. But I think, as I'm looking at this, what I would like to do in a later video is, depending on how well it does today, if it's worth it, we'll put a Boyd stock on it, and then maybe an entry-level Leupold scope, and see if it does any better than what it does out of the box, the way it sets right now. Well, we made it out to the range. I have this 25-06 basically new out of the box, and it's supposed to be bore sighted. So I've got a target set up at 50 yards, and I'm going to go through, show you guys how I sight in a new scope. We've got these 115 grain ballistic silver tips we're going to put through it. And like I say, this rifle's never been fired, so we'll see how it goes. Okay, well I think I'm pretty well sighted in at 200 yards, maybe just a touch high at 200. With these 115 grain bullets, I should be about an inch and a half high at 100 yards, and I'm closer to 2 inches at 100 yards, but I think that's close enough for what we're doing today. So I'm gonna go ahead and launch a few out there at 200 and 300 yards. I don't know, we'll see how we do at 300, maybe try for 400, but we'll get that drone up in there, touch a few off, and see how we do. Okay, we're gonna shoot at that large target on the right, and I'm gonna hold right on it. Yep, got that one. We're going to try for that small target on the far left. Well, we got that one. Let's move out to 300 yards. Okay. Again, we'll try that large target on the far left first. Gonna hold right at the top of the target. And that looked like it was high. So we'll put it on the target. I got it. Alright, we're at 400 yards. I'm gonna launch a couple out there at that large target on the left. And from what the box says, it's gonna be about 18 inches low. So we'll see how she does. Just gonna go about halfway in between that bar that's holding the target and the target. See what we get. Yep, that got it. Put one out there at that medium-sized one. See if we can hit it. I'll do the same thing, go about halfway in between. Got it. I'd say you could kill a deer at 400 yards with this 25-06 without too much trouble. I can't see the little target hanging. We'll shoot at that middle one again. Got it. Well, that's not too bad for out of the box. Fairly cheap Weaver scope, Savage's budget rifle. 400 yards, we're hitting a 6 or 8 inch plate. I'm not going to complain about that. Alright, well, that'll do it for today. You guys have a good one.